books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a clinical psychologist, perfectionism coach, and of course, an author too. And she's the author of the book The Perfectionist Dilemma, no other than Dr. Tara Cousineau.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Tara or Dr. Tara. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Oh, sure. My name is Tara Cousineau. I am a clinical psychologist. I work as a psychologist at Harvard University's Counseling Center part time. I'm also a coach in private practice, and I deal and work with and love high achievers who I've been working with for about 25 years.
Dr. Tara Cousineau, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. How do you define the perfectionist dilemma at the heart of your book? What's the fundamental conflict perfectionists face between their drive and their well being?
Well, perfectionism, as I define it, is a paradox created by a need for belonging and a fear of rejection, paired with unrealistic expectations for achievement and approval that ultimately sap your energy and your life force.
Hmm. Interesting definition, Dr. Tara. We often associate perfectionism with procrastination. What are the some of the less obvious or more insidious cause of perfectionism that you explore in the book?
Well, it's interesting. Perfectionism, I always say the near sisters of perfectionism are procrastination on the one hand and workaholism on the other. And it's
Mm,
really a spectrum. And so, I mean, we all have some element of it. We can't almost help it living in modern society, modern culture that's always promoting more is better. We have to keep striving. We have to keep on the grind, no pain, no gain mentality. So you almost can't get away from it. Some people say, no, I'm not a perfectionist. And then they start telling me about their lives. And I'm like, oh, really?
oh, really? You emphasize self compassion as antidote. How is self compassion fundamentally different from boosting self esteem, and why is it more effective for perfectionists?
Well, if I step back for a moment with perfectionism, many perfectionists have pretty severe inner critical voices. They're berating themselves. They always think they have to do more. They don't allow themselves to rest because they're hearing this sort of voice or pattern in their mind saying, it's not okay. You have to keep going. And so, one way to work with the inner critics is actually to start to cultivate self compassion, which can be um, very challenging for the perfectionist because they think that if they take a break, even if it's a brain break or take a walk around the block, that they're letting themselves off the hook in some way. Self compassion actually really is a soft kind of power because it allows you to quiet that inner critic, turn towards the inner critic with some understanding. I like to say that the inner critic is like a heart palpitation. It's really a signal that something really important might be happening in the moment. And so if you can cultivate self-compassion, it's a resource that comes from the inside. It's an understanding that you are worthy of love and belonging, that you have something important to share with the world, that your presence matters. Self-esteem, on the other hand, is really you're looking to the outside world. You're looking to external factors to say that you're worthy.
Dr. Tara, what's the biggest myth about perfectionism that you aim to dismantle in the book? It is about it makes me successful or it's just a high standards.
Well, I think many people who would identify as having perfectionistic traits, whether they grew up with perfectionists around them or whether they cultivate it later on, would say that they need it to stay motivated to achieve their goals. I mean, many writers have little challenges with perfectionism too. They're thinking about the big outcome rather than the small steps that it takes to get there. Now, striving for excellence is a noble value. There's no harm in wanting to do something really great, perform well, have high quality in your life. But if there's so much suffering that goes along with it, you have to step back and say, okay, where's the tipping point here?
Dr. Tara, very well said. Beautifully, beautifully articulated. Happy achiever is a powerful reframe. How does someone trapped in perfectionism operationally shift their mindset and actions to become this?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people focus on, well, if you just change your mind, if you just think more positively, if you just follow these, small little steps, everything will be okay. But if we could change our minds, well, we would do that in a second. But people kind of get stuck. And really where they get stuck, I believe, in my work over the decades, is actually really working from the body level up. So if people can resource themselves from the inside out, and I really mean like resource themselves, eating well, getting movement, having quality friendships, getting a good night's sleep. If you're resourced in that way, then the challenges and the stressors don't seem so daunting. Um, let's say. And so often perfectionists will just say, well, what do I need to do? I want to get rid of this inner critic. I'm like, well, let's actually just work first with you paying attention to your body, because often when a perfectionist walks into my office, they're all head up. They're just from like the neck up, right? They're thinking, they've got it all worked out. They want to know if you're going to solve their problem in 2 seconds. They're very intellectualized, a lot of analysis paralysis, a lot of overthinking. And so it is actually a challenge for someone who identifies as a perfectionist to actually get connected to their feelings, their body, their sensations. And it's often humorous, when you start asking people to even do simple things like breathe. Um, they're like, no, I'm not good at this, as if they have to breathe perfectly. So I try to flip the script and have them actually work from really kind of like a bottom up approach versus a top down approach, because they're already pretty good at that.
Mm, definitely. You likely delve into underlying fears driving perfectionisms like fear of failure, judgment, or inadequacy. How does cultivating self compassion directly address and soothe these deep seated fears?
Well, self compassion, as it's sort of understood in the psychology world, has three elements to it. One element is mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware of the present moment without judging it. Another element is calm humanity, that we're not alone with this human experience. We're not alone with these feelings of inadequacy. Our situation might be unique to us, but the feelings are actually universal. And then there's this element of self kindness, right? Really turning towards yourself as you would a friend. And if with these three elements, really understanding that they work sort of in concert with one another, you can start cultivating more of it, and you can kind of go in at any angle. Maybe the first thing is understanding like how to practice mindfulness, or remembering that you are actually aren't the only one on this planet that's feeling like you're going to screw up this presentation, right?
Yes, true.
um, and then the harder thing is really changing the inner narrative, or cultivating, really actually accessing your own soul, if you will, your own sort of true self. If it was stripped away from all of these fears, would really be saying, listen, Danielle, everything is okay. You are okay. You deserve to be here. People want you here. People want to hear what you have to say. We have to start learning to be kinder to ourselves in that way. And it takes practice, because at first, there's a lot of resistance to being kinder to oneself. It feels foreign because it requires you to feel something. It's much easier
True.
to do to, for somebody else. So you have to almost in a daily practice remind yourself of who you are, have gratitude for the skills and abilities and effort that you're putting into things.
Yes, people, be kind to yourself. Deal with it.
Face it, face your fears with love
Yes,
and kindness.
totally, totally. So, Dr. Tara, how can letting go of perfectionistic striving actually to lead to better, more sustainable results and genuine achievement?
Well, so people don't necessarily want to let go of their perfectionism. So I try to help them really see that it's accepting and cultivating excellence without the suffering. So often the work is okay, well, if you're striving really hard and you're going and achieving this goal, check in with yourself. How are you feeling? And if people say, well, I'm stressed and I'm tense and I'm angry and I'm irritated and my roommates don't like me and my spouse is mad at me all the time, well, then it's not working. It's not working for you. But if you're striving for a goal and you're consistent and you're following a routine and you, even if it's really hard, like you're, I don't know, practicing to run a marathon, you're not going to run 26 miles in one day. You're going to start with workouts and you're going to start small. I mean, and like you're inspired, right? There's something that's keeping you going. And that's associated with positive feelings. So so much of this is really understanding like, well, what's happening and how am I feeling? And the researchers are even showing that actually some Canadian researchers are showing that there's this sort of point of diminishing returns when you're striving for a goal where you get to a point where the extra effort no longer helps you. It actually can make you prone to making mistakes because you're fatigued, you've overworked your brain. So when you're striving for excellence, there's really sort of like to know when it's okay to stop, right? To say, I've done enough. My 80% could be somebody else's 200%, but 80% is a good rule of going for it, and knowing to step back where relaxation and sleep and good nutrition and eating a good meal is going to
Yes.
be better for you before taking that exam or going asking somebody out on a date or whatever the fear is, right? Because perfectionism ultimately is protection. It's an
Mm.
understandable protection of your sense of self, right? Your sense of worthiness. And I believe that when people come to recognize that their perfectionism isn't bad, it's actually protective, but it's not using the strategies that are actually going to help you. So that's where the work is. And that's where the happy achiever tools come into play that I write about in my book.
Happy achiever indeed. So let's talk about that too. How does the book guide readers to redefine success and good enough in a way that aligns with being a happy achiever rather than endless perfectionist?
Well, I map out, I have an acronym. Psychologists love acronyms, as you might
Yes.
know, and so I have this acronym. It's called EVOLVE, the EVOLVE method. And each letter stands for something, right? So there's E for embody the present moment, going back to that mindfulness, going back to really tuning in. Like if you're not aware, it's really hard to make any kind of change in your life. And then V is validate your experiences. And a lot of people who struggle with perfectionism as protection didn't really get validated in the way that they needed to, usually in childhood or adolescence. And so, really learning to validate your experiences as real, as authentic, as okay, even if they're hard. And then there's O, which is open your heart, and this is where we start to introduce self-compassion. I don't start with self-compassion. I kind of tuck it in. And then sort of identifying your inner critics. I have sort of, some archetypes of inner critics that are pretty common and naming them so that you start to have a relationship with your inner critic. Loving your inner critic. And that's where people are like, what are you talking about, Dr. Tara? And I'm like, no, your inner critic's there for a reason. It's trying to help you. But when you start to connect it with it, it can learn that doesn't have to have that job which has been berating you. So that is an interesting point in the process. And then there's V, which is making a vow to yourself, like really committing to change, which requires you to practice skills like self regulation, self compassion, um, uh, mindfulness, loving kindness, meditation. There's a whole sort of suite of tools in here, and you really need to commit to them, just like you would if you were running a marathon. You're going to have to practice every day. That's how we build habits. It's how we start to shift the negativity bias in the brain that we all have to a more positive bias, right? So that takes time, just like learning a new language. And then the final one is sparking the energy of excellence, where I bring in some non traditional psychology tools like emotional freedom technique, which is tapping, which clients that I work with really love because sometimes their mind is too busy to actually meditate. So I teach them some tapping skills on, even though a part of me is really afraid that I'm going to screw up, I completely, deeply love and accept myself, and they tap on certain points. And so I've got some people who just love that the most, which has been the biggest surprise to me, honestly. So I sort of wrap it up with some energy medicine tools, and that goes back to the beginning, which is embodying the present moment. And so that's my system, if you will.
Beautifully empowering answer, Dr. Tara. And as a clinical psychologist, perfectionism coach, and an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
What are my short term and long term goals? Oh, interesting. Well, my short term goal is to try to spread the word around perfectionism, the happy achiever tools. I love talking about it. Many people are interested in it. So that's a short term goal is kind of actually I have to stick with it, like the consistency piece. Like I have to
Yes.
I have to
Cons-
make the vow to myself that I stick with my own routine. So one of my short-term goals was I created a new publication in Substack called The Peaceful Perfectionist, where I get to kind of continue the conversation. So that's been really fun. So my goal is to kind of nurture that. And then my long-term goal is I have a fun long-term goal is I want to be able to work from anywhere in the world. I've been in I've
yes.
been in Boston, Massachusetts area for like over 30 years. I'm like, oh, I would love to be able to do this work from everywhere. So that's a long-term goal of mine.
Yes. Good luck to your goals, Miss Tara or Dr. Tara, and looking forward for more success and for sure more empowering books like this to come. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you? A
Oh,
clinical psychologist,
oh,
perfectionism coach, as well as an author.
well, so if if you want to be any of those things, if you want to be a helper or a healer or a coach or a writer, you just need to start. Start
yes.
somewhere, right? You need to start with writing things down, writing down your ideas, writing down your goals, talking about them, having allies. Because the hardest thing is, I think, the self doubt that creeps in, right? Um, and we have to actually have allies to help us, through as well. And perfectionists in particular don't like asking for help, so that's why I say we need some allies. But to get started, I feel like say your goals and dreams aloud, write them down, and then get specific. What's a little thing that I can do? Which was actually the advice I got from a mentor. I consider him a mentor, Dr. Rick Hansen, who's written, I don't know, dozen books at this point. And I went to a workshop and I said, I really want to write a book on parenting. And he said, well, this is how I got started. I committed to writing 200 words a day. And by the end of the year, he had one of his first books called Just One Thing, one little advice piece. And I never forgot that. And I just thought, right, 200 words a day. So it is about committing to the process.
Yes. And stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write every day.
Yes. Well, the procrastinator, let me just say, because you brought it up a
Yes.
few times, it's just a little part of you that's scared.
Yes.
It's scared of failing, it's scared of making a mistake, and so it's delaying pain. That's what
Mm.
procrastination is. It's just delaying pain. And if you can turn towards that part of you and say, "Oh, I know that this is hard and this is scary and you've never done this before, or maybe you have, but it's always hard." Just stick with it, because the more you do it, you'll feel so much better about yourself. So a procrastinator is often like a little teen part that just would rather play video games than actually put in the effort. And if you can just, send some encouragement to that part of you and get started on whatever it is close at hand, it will
Yes.
make it easier. That's the self compassion part.
Dr. Tara, thank you so much for your advice. And can you please recommend a book that influenced your journey?
Oh, a book that influenced me?
Yes, please.
Oh, I would, you know what, I probably would say Rick Rick Hanson's book, the Buddha's Brain, that
Oh,
influenced
wow.
me.
Yes.
So that really brought in sort of, it gave language to neuroscience. It identified, or at least brought forward the idea of the negativity bias, and learning how to work with the negativity bias and sort of rewiring your brain, by doing just one thing a day, something that's in a
Yes.
positive direction. So I would say that Dr. Hanson's book was very influential in my work.
Baby steps, people, baby steps, and thank you for your recommended book, Miss Tara. And how do you help readers measure progress on this journey? What does success look like when embracing imperfection is the goal?
What does success look like? Well, again, I'm going to say it looks like what it feels on the inside, right? It's not necessarily all the gold and the glitter on the outside. Is that when you feel that you've put in the effort, that you've really kind of put your heart in things and you're satisfied, with the effort that you put in, and that you can really say, yeah, I did that. That's a measure of success. It's not necessarily the external outcome.
Definitely. And Dr. Tara, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. Dr. Tara, if someone truly embodies becoming a happy achiever after ending your book, what would be the most noticeable shift in their daily life?
Oh, I think that they would find life enjoyable and they would have found balance at that point. Yeah.
Definitely. Balance, balance, people, and baby steps.
Mhm.
Dr. Tara Cousineau, thank you so much for sharing your The Perfectionist Dilemma. And can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Oh, absolutely. People can come and find my main website, which is taracousineau.com. They can also go to theperfectionistdilemma.com. Yeah, just Google search perfectionist dilemma, and they can also go and check out my new Substack publication called The Peaceful Perfectionist.
Yes, people, let's support Dr. Tara Kuzno because if you support her, more empowering books like this to come, more empowering advocacy or happy achiever to come. Dr. Tara, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Danielle.
More to come, people. See you soon.